Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Forth Tay Branch. My name is Gregor McGee. I'm the branch chair. Tonight we've got some fantastic speakers. We've got Louise Hoskins, president, and Stuart Hughes, who is a vice president. I'm going to introduce Louise first. Louise became IOSH president in November 2021, having served as vice president for 3 years and president-elect for 1 year. Prior to this, she was chair of the Chiltern branch and remains an active member of the consultancy sector group. Louise is a first career health and safety professional with over 30 years experience. After graduating from Nottingham-Trent University, she worked as a health and environment health officer for Cambridge City Council for the cooperative promoting safe working practices, and then in the construction sector before becoming head. Over to you, Louise.
Hi, Greg. It's really great to be here and great to see so many people on the call. Thank you for inviting myself and Stuart to speak with you today. And I can see a few people that I know very well in the audience. So it'd be great to, if everyone could introduce themselves in the chat and let me know where you're from. And it's always good to be this far north. So who knows, hopefully I might come in person as well one day. So for anybody who knows me on the call, you know that the branches and the groups have a very special place in my heart. And as Greg has said, I've been a vice chair and chair of what has been my local branch actually ever since I joined IOSH in 1999, when I was 5, by the way. So yeah, I've done quite well, and I know how hard the committee and the volunteers would have worked to have put this event on this evening. So thank you to everybody. I firmly believe the networks really are the heartbeat of what we do in IOSH, so thank you for that. So as the president of IOSH, just a little bit about what I do and my role. I have a bit of a dual role, so I'm president of IOSH and I'm also chair of council, which is the representative body of the institution and part of our governance structure. So the role of president is very much ambassadorial, and I'm supported by a presidential team consisting of 6 vice presidents. So there's myself as president, and then there's the president-elect, who's Lawrence, and our immediate past president, Jimmy, who I know that you've all met. So as Greg said, I very much began my volunteer journey in my local Chiltern branch. I became vice president in 2017. And then took the role of president-elect in 2020. So that kind of shows you how I've moved through the presidential team. Outside of IOSH, I work with all sorts of businesses of all sorts of shapes and sizes. And I'm speaking to you today from a small city called St Albans, which is just outside London. So as chair of council, one of my aims and objectives for this year is to really demystify what we do. And I'm very much focused on raising council's profile. So I'm so glad that you're here, Stan, because you're going to be flying that flag as well. And one of the things that I've done since I became chair of council back in November is create work streams, or steering groups as we've called them, which is really starting to encourage teamwork, collaboration, and to enhance the influence and effectiveness of council by getting people to work in small groups and really fulfilling the responsibilities that council has. And because council is the elected body of members, this means that you as members are going to have your voices heard at very much the highest level. So during my year as president, myself and the presidential team are concentrating on themes which focus on how members can support their organisations to add value to business by creating inclusive, healthy and psychologically safe workplaces, utilising modern leadership skills. So things like compassion, creativity, curiosity, kindness and courage, rather than that command and control. And through this, we will create teams who trust each other. And with trust comes innovation, and people will put their best selves forward, taking care of themselves and those they work alongside. So this evening, Stuart and myself are going to be talking to you about the Catch the Wave campaign, and this showcases the business benefits of being socially sustainable. And I firmly believe it's going to transform our professional narrative, demonstrating the value that we add, helping us as health and safety professionals to really fully articulate how we can help to create more engaging places to work and do business. And via this approach, we will create inclusive cultures ready to tackle the very many complex issues that the world is currently facing. And let's face it, the only constant is change right now. So, as lots of you will know, I'm a very keen advocate of equality, diversity and inclusion. And my year this year is going to particularly focus on supporting women into leadership roles within our profession. So I am here tonight as the 55th president of IOSH, but only the 7th woman. And I very much hope there will be those in the audience and elsewhere who will follow my example and put themselves forward where this is their ambition, because together we are stronger. And when we achieve that equality, we rise everybody up. I'm also excited to support our collaborations with the Commonwealth, the UN's International Labour Organization and the International Social Security Association. And why? The reason for this is that now more than ever, we really need global solutions for a common goal. So we are, believe it or not, we gained almost 10,000 members last year. And that means that we're nudging towards 49,000 members, all with a common goal. And great things are rarely achieved by one person. Engaged teams can achieve extraordinary things, but global teams really can change the world. And yes, it only takes one conversation at a time. So thank you, everybody, for giving myself and Stuart this opportunity to speak with you today. By all means, put your questions in the chat box and we'll take questions, any questions about anything later on. If you do want to contact us, we have a presidential team coordinator, and I'm sure Stuart will put her email address in the chat box, which is sunita.patel@iosh.com. And the overarching piece around my presidential year is people, sustainability and putting the heart into health and safety. So in terms of this presentation, which I'm really excited to be presenting to you today, and I've very much been part of this, part of the IOSH journey in terms of putting this together, I'm going to introduce Stuart, who's one of our most experienced vice presidents. Stuart has 15 years of experience as an IOSH professional, and prior to joining the presidential team, he was a volunteer on the Performance and Development Committee, and this is a subcommittee of IOSH's Board of Trustees. Like myself, Stuart is a first career health and safety professional, and both of us began life as environmental health officers. He is currently head of health and safety for Mercedes Formula One team, and I always say that's quite cool. And Stuart is our vice president supporting our Future of the Profession steering group in council, and he described this to me as his passion project, which is great. Stuart brings a modern approach and energy to the presidential team, values true inclusion, and has an ability to always ask exactly the right questions at the right time, and keeps me on the straight and narrow as well. So that's a little bit about us. But I'm going to, this is where it could all go drastically wrong, and hopefully I can share my screen now, because we're going to talk about Catch the Wave. So hopefully, if I can have a thumbs up from Stan, because I can see you, Stan. Yeah, hopefully you can see my screen. So just by way of scene setting, really, we all know that the world is changing, and certainly COVID has definitely accelerated that change in perception that we've all had. And I think everybody is rebalancing our focus on our environment, our economic vulnerabilities, employment, and there's a real need and a want out there to address social sustainability. And as we go through this presentation, what we're going to be talking to you about is the extended definition of sustainability. So I think very much in business, we do talk about sustainability in its broadest context, but that word sustainability is very much sort of captured the heart of those that think about natural, you know, the environment and nature and natural sustainability. But we're going to talk about the broader definition of sustainability and what being sustainable means, and how health and safety fits into all of this and how we add value. So we firmly believe this is very much about people first. So it places occupational safety and health right at the heart of this revolution, and it's all about catching that wave. So all about adding value in terms of what we do. So I'm sure I can't see, look, I even have this on my desk, can't quite see with my background. So the Healthy Profit, I'm sure that many of you have seen the Healthy Profit, and again, that's something that's free to download, and that's, I mean, that dates us back now to 2018, so that was pre-pandemic. But I've always been a huge advocate for the Healthy Profit, because it always talks about, well, actually, how can we add value? What is it that we do in our profession that adds value to the businesses that we work alongside? And we argued in the Healthy Profit that investments in and commitments to health and safety really do boost performance, productivity, and profitability. And we're going to talk a bit later on about supply chains and things like that. And we know that there's a global shortage of skilled workers at the moment. So there's a much smaller pool, and people are moving definitely based on welfare, they're based on and how they feel within an environment. So that psychological safety is massively important at the moment. And so Catch the Wave is all about harnessing that and basically saying, you know, this is how we can add value. Anybody who's run a business knows how, you know, staff turnover is expensive. And so people, by putting people first and having that people-centered perspective, the campaign is basically saying, this is how we can add value to your organization. So I believe it's very much changing the narrative of how we work. So a little bit about the background of where this comes from, and hopefully this starts to tell a story. So again, many of you will recognize this. So governments and business have always understood that crisis needed to be tackled for development to be sustained. So, and in terms of how we've been operating, as far back as the year 2000, we had the Millennium Development Goals, which some of you might remember. And these have sort of moved on to be talking, you know, transferred into the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. And these have been ratified across 193 different countries. So on the screen, and actually if you Google this and go onto the UN's page, there's like a really nice clip that talks about all of these different sustainability goals. And when you start to look at those sustainability goals, and perhaps this is a little bit of homework after this, you start to see that within those sustainability goals, there are all sorts of health and safety. There are some areas that really do directly talk about health and safety, like well-being, good health and well-being and so on. But IOSH has gone through those and they've identified something like 41 goals that are directly related to what we're doing. And again, we're going to talk about why this is important to business and why sustainability is important to business and how it affects the focus of business right at this moment in time. So in respect of these goals, these were all agreed in 2015 and gained worldwide support. So very much demonstrating different governments across the world, their commitments to jointly tackle the world's most pressing challenges. So they look at things like poverty, hunger, disease, premature death, and climate change. And at the same time, many of the world's most successful companies, they started to see the advantages of aligning their corporate strategies and policies with these goals that are very much people-centered. So they reflect human needs, you know, we're talking about human rights, resourcing, and so on. And the UN Global Compact, which is the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative, has now signed up over 14,000 companies in 162 countries since it began in 2000. So it's really a call out to companies to align their strategies and their operations with universal principles in human rights, labour, environment, and anti-corruption, and take action that advances societal goals. And very much the signatories in respect of this see business as a force for good. So again, I come up with these crazy phrases that Stuart will describe, but I always talk about good governance lasts longer than any government. And for me, that very much comes from, you know what, if business gets this right and we can change the way that we do business, we can transform the world that we work in. So, you know, it's and really coming out of the pandemic, we're really focusing on this now. So next slide. So again, in terms of business, you know what, there'll be people on this call that run small businesses. I know that there may be people on this call that run large businesses as well. And when you run a business, there's all sorts of pulls on your time and your resources and your efforts. And this might prompt some discussion in the chat box, but health and safety is our #1 priority. We take it very seriously. I would argue that health and safety should be a key value within our businesses, balanced with all of these different aspects. So we cannot have high ethical standards unless we're creating sustainable financial standards within our organization. So all of these things, so the ethical, the financial, the societal, and the environmental pieces, they all interconnect with each other. And having a sustainable business, and you know what we're talking about in all of this, is about having those pieces in clear balance. But what we're arguing in the Catch the Wave campaign is actually, if you put your people right at the front of that, and we treat our people in the right way, we support them, we nurture them, we allow them to work in an environment that's psychologically and physically safe, they're going to be the ones who create this balance within our organizations. So it very much creates that. And I always think of, I'm going to show my age now. When I was a kid, we used to do cat's cradle. It's like, I couldn't even start to do it now. And you kind of pull on a thread in one area and it affects a thread in another. And so by being sustainable, we're putting all of these things into balance. So yeah, exciting stuff. So how has this been affected by COVID? So we know, I mean, I don't know about everybody on this call, but the way that I have worked has changed phenomenally over the last couple of years. And the way that the people that I interact with at work has significantly changed. So we really are at a moment in history where, you know, COVID has very much accelerated that call to repay the trust that we've placed in businesses to keep our organizations, you know, up and running and all those essential services. And so what we're calling for is actually repaying those people to support them with working conditions that are very much people-centered and put people at the heart of what we're all doing. But pressure, you know, the other aspect of all of this, I think, again, you know, things that have come out of the COVID crisis, why we're talking about this is that there's also a demand from our customers. So more and more customers are actually demanding to know more about, you know, where they're putting their money. So more and more people are looking to do business with organisations that can demonstrate high standards of social sustainability. And you know what, when we get it wrong, everybody knows about it. So I always think of actually, which suits the you guys all probably know about Brewdog. So that organisation where their employees published an open letter about the working conditions, and it goes everywhere, doesn't it? And nobody's going to look at them in the same kind of light. And I think that customer focus, so we've got, you know, that coming from the bottom up, we're very much seeing that, and people want to do business with organisations that are socially sustainable. But you know something, it goes even further than that. So in terms of the investment community, certainly what we've found, definitely over the last couple of years, is that those, and it's partly to do with the UN Global Compact and the work that they're doing there, is that they're actually creating an environment where those organisations that are more socially sustainable are going to be more successful. And actually some of these charts demonstrate that actually organisations that have high standards of governance, they have high standards of social sustainability, they look after their workers, and health and safety is massively in that piece. Those organisations are actually seeing financial growth. And I think the interesting thing for us, which is probably going to be an interesting one to open debate for as we go forward, is that investors, so the biggest investment bodies across the land at the moment, you know, we're in really turbulent times. We always talk about this Booker world, is that then they want to put their investments somewhere where their investments are going to grow. And they know they're going to be looking at those organisations that have done well across this period. And in order to do well, you've had to look after your people. And so, again, it's another massive driver. And it's not just directly our organisations, but it's also to do with our supply chains as well. So definitely those organisations that are focused on this are seeing that coming through. So catch the wave. So massively important campaign. And it's basically saying that IOSH recognises all of these changes And it's a challenge to use the principles that we're all familiar with in respect of health and safety. And by focusing on health and safety principles, by putting our people first, we can all catch the wave and reap those benefits. So it is a moment in time for us, and let's see how your work matters. So I'm going to play a movie clip, and then I'm going to hand over to Stuart. Hopefully this works.
There's an unstoppable wave of change moving across the global business landscape, cascading through boardrooms, sending ripples through supply chains and beyond. It's time to catch the wave. The COVID-19 pandemic, climate crisis, and rise of social justice movements around the world have all accelerated thinking beyond the here and now. What does it mean to be a responsible, sustainable, resilient business built on solid environmental, social, and governance principles? It all starts with people. It's no coincidence that those businesses setting high standards for the treatment of their workforces, communities, and supply chains reap rewards with stronger performance and growth. Our connected world expects organisations to prioritise public good and behave responsibly. Employees and customers will call out poor working conditions and demand better. But this is not just about doing the right thing. Social sustainability is the backbone of corporate resilience. It supports stronger operational performance and cash flow. And right now, that feels more critical than ever. The environment has been the flagship cause driving the corporate sustainability agenda. Now it's time to put people alongside planet and profit, to unlock and unleash the tremendous value that lies in our global workforce. IOSH is working alongside international organisations, including UN agencies and initiatives, such as the World Health Organization, ILO, and UN Global Compact to harness the collective energy of progressive businesses. Together, we're making a long-term commitment to drive social sustainability forward, with a global force of safety and health professionals making change happen on the ground. Because safer environments and enlightened attitudes to health and well-being, diversity and inclusion are all safety and health issues too. And COVID-19 has shown just how vital it is to protect people. If businesses are not just to survive, but thrive. Together, we can be part of a global network of resilient, profitable businesses and organisations that flourish, equitably and sustainably, around safe, healthy workforces. It's time for a new world of work. It's time to catch the wave with IOSH.
Thanks, Lou, and very much impressed that the technology's all worked faultlessly. So congratulations on that front. I'm always humbled when you give me an introduction because I feel like it makes me blush a little bit. But thanks for the kind words, and it's nice to see everybody. Hopefully you'll see from that video that Catch the Wave is quite inspirational in terms of bringing, I guess, the occupational safety and health profession back into the sustainability agenda. And I think one of the things I'm quite keen to champion as part of the Catch the Wave campaign is really clarifying the role of an OSH professional as an enabler. And if you're an OSH professional on the call, you all know, all the different bits of the business or organisations that you serve that you're in and around, and you are a conduit to making sure that the workforce is safe, that the management understands what it is they're supposed to be doing from an occupational safety and health front, and also reporting into the board, on performance and making sure that we're getting the right resources, etc., into the OSH programme. And I think it's quite important to just clarify that this isn't new, really, and it's not additional. This is really about shining the spotlight on what the OSH profession does, and bringing that to the forefront so that we're actually part of really the completion of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is a lofty ambition, but you've got a working blueprint that 193 countries are signed up to, and all the organisations that Lou referenced earlier in terms of size and scale of them. And that is a commitment to bring a better world of work to everyone. And you can see from this chart, it might not work for some people, but for me, it just gives you a really good explanation of how does OSH fit into the organisational structure, and why Catch the Wave is important about bringing that spotlight onto OSH. And I think the next slide really just highlights the impact of where health and safety falls into almost all the other elements around this, into sustainability as a whole. So business operation and the supply chain has a knock-on impact in various ways, and you can see this from the chart here. So you can see how it impacts employee morale, accountability, the productivity of an organisation, the quality of what comes out of that organisation, business reputation, which feeds back around to the employee morale, and then also the impact of the working conditions, the management systems, the actual safety of the workers, impacts then on family health, prosperity, has a social impact, obviously the impact of natural resources used in production of products, and the organisational costs, and all of those things wrapped together into this broader brush of sustainability. So your societal, economic and environmental elements. And you can see, I think this diagram pulls it together really well, you can see the impact of OSH ripple across all of those things, and that's where I think Catch the Wave's done a really nice job of pulling all of this together. And I think when you start to see IOSH's engagement with the UN and the ILO and the Commonwealth, you can see the spread of this coming. So I think what we're really trying to do is to promote this campaign, to bring it to the attention of the membership, to get people championing it. And if you're at the end of this presentation none the wiser, I mean, I hope that's not the case, but if you're none the wiser, there's 2 webinars that have been done already that you can go back to and kind of catch up on the key themes in that. There's another one coming or just gone. Well, I'm not so good with my calendar, but their resources are there for you to learn more. And yeah, there's a plethora basically of tools for change here. So we've got the different elements here. So if you go to the IOSH website, you're able to see the Catch the Wave campaign, the webinars that I've already mentioned, and then some of the other resources and tools that kind of give you, I guess, a good base knowledge of what the campaign's all about and why IOSH is pushing this. As I said, to bring this spotlight onto what the OSH profession does in terms of helping create and sustain, effective businesses, which is fundamentally sustainability. Yeah, so talking about the kind of campaign timeline, January 2022, we had the white paper 2 come out. So we've also launched some Catch the Wave webinars, the 6 free bite-sized courses. In March, white paper 3 comes out, additional webinars, and we'll also be launching IOSH Managing Sustainably, easy for me to say. And then in June, we see the launch of, we see IOSH launching Leading and Working Sustainably. Sustainability metrics for SMEs to corporate business assurance tool. And it doesn't just stop there. So this, this is some of the momentum behind the campaign, and then it will carry on as part of IOSH's strategic direction. And I think it's a really key point I just want to get across. This isn't a call for more from the occupational safety and health profession. It is all about focusing on what it is that we currently do to deliver into organisations to make them, sustainable and effective and future-proof. And it's really about helping us demonstrate the value of the OSH profession. And when you think there's almost 49,000 members globally, it's a pretty loud voice if we're all championing our cause. So we want to harness that through the Catch the Wave campaign. One of the things you'll see is some requests for some social media engagement. So what we're trying to do is simplify this to kind of bring it down into a nice statement. So Catch the Wave has instilled in me X. There'll be a hashtag flying along. Sheena's one of our future leader steering committee members, and has obviously got behind the Catch the Wave campaign. She's recognised that it's installed in her a sense of purpose, and I think it's just quite clear that as I've said, the OSH profession is really at the heart of sustainability. If you think about people, planet, profit, we can't make the profit without the people. And if the people aren't there and the work environment isn't safe, isn't healthy, and isn't giving them all of the things that it needs to do in terms of sense of purpose, pride, all of those other good things, then our workforces that we have today won't be there tomorrow. And it's one of those things that I think we can really generate some momentum if we digest the information and then really challenge ourselves to reflect on, well, what does Catch the Wave mean to me personally as an individual, and what does it mean to me as an OSH professional? And we can start to communicate that, and you'll see that kind of request for social media engagements come through. Catch the Wave in a sentence. So Catch the Wave post-COVID is a call to action for all organisations of every size to recognise your role in harnessing the power of your people by reaching out to the occupational safety and health professionals who operate at the heart of every community. I really like that as a turn of phrase. It's genuinely captured, I think, the essence of the campaign in a really nice way. And I think if you just take one thing away from the presentation today, if somebody asks you what Catch the Wave is, that is a really lovely elevated pitch for you just to be able to say, actually, it is a call to arms. It's about it's about connecting organisations with the OSH profession and the value of the OSH profession. Is that the slide deck done, Lou? Ah, no. More to come.
You've got one more to do.
And that is an additional slide in. That's caught me right out. Yeah, so I guess next steps. How do you get involved, and what is it IOSH are asking? So Louise, the presidential team are zipping around the world through the power of Zoom, which is quite nice because it's quite easy to do from your home. Less enjoyable as I don't get to come and meet everybody at the moment, but hopefully that will change. But we're seeking you to get involved directly. So sign up to the Catch the Wave campaign, which you can do by visiting the website, which you can see on the screen. Take a watch of the webinar sessions, which I mentioned earlier. Part 1 and Part 2 are there. Part 3 has already taken place, so don't register for something in the past, but it will. When you go and find Part 1 and Part 2, you'll be able to find Part 3 as well now. And what I would say is, if this piques your interest, if this has switched you on in some way, go and take a deep dive into that. Go and watch the video clips there, gain the understanding, and start to really talk about Catch the Wave. Within whether it's within your socials, within your LinkedIn communities, within your branches, your networks, or just within your organisations, and start to put that challenge out there. And I think collectively, if we all do that, our voice will be heard. That is it. I don't know is there any questions in the chat room?
That's it. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Louise and Stuart. Definitely grabbed my imagination. We actually have a supplier evaluation form, like many companies do, and the terms and conditions, the famous box called 5.1, a lot of people don't understand it, terms and conditions, and it's all to do with modern slavery, and nobody really believes in it. Sitting in an office, there's just a tick box exercise. But I think something like this really will grab the imagination and get the message out there. I'm going to pass over to Sandy. Sandy, if you could go through the questions, please.
Thanks very much, Gregor, and thank you, Louise and Stuart, for giving up your time and coming along and presenting to members this evening. Really appreciate that. So a couple of questions on here, and I'll just pick one or two and I'll slip them around a little bit, okay? So the first question I'll give to you, Louise, is what are your thoughts on how we might encourage companies to act beyond simple greenwashing campaigns?
Wow, that's a big question. For me, the reason why I'm so excited about this campaign is that, just as I've said, it changes the way that we talk about what we do. So it moves us away from a language around compliance to how we actually create value within our organisations. So it means that we have a new language using modern leadership skills to actually work alongside organisations and businesses to demonstrate to them, and we all know this, don't we, as health and safety professionals, but it's about how we articulate it. It's about how we speak to organisations and say, do you know what, if we look after our people, if we train them well, if we create psychologically and physically safe environments, they're going to look after the person who's standing next to them, and they're going to look after themselves. And we're going to create environments, working environments, where we empower people to innovate and you know, step outside of where they are and really bring value to those businesses. And we've all been in businesses which value our people, and those businesses are going to be the businesses that survive and thrive. So it really is, for me, this is all about how we think forward. And actually, I was saying to Stuart, if any of the volunteers here went to the Networks conference, Stuart hosted a brilliant session on language for leadership, and that's very much at the heart of my presidential themes this year, because I don't call them soft skills, I call them power skills. And just by changing the way that we look forward as a profession, if we harness it right now, if we catch that wave, that's going to be how we move beyond greenwashing. And I'm going to hand over to Stuart now because he's got his hand up.
Thanks, Liv. I've learned all the buttons now, so I can be polite on this as well. Probably too late, we'll go back to face-to-face meetings, just so I've got the hang of it all. Yeah, I think the point on greenwashing is really interesting. So I think there's a three-pronged attack to this now. There is one that I think the investor community won't tolerate greenwash anymore, and I think you'll find that you know, there is a drive to invest into businesses that are ethical, that are demonstrating they care for the people, that are not damaging the planet, and that's driving change. You've also got the change in consumer behaviour and consumer power, and I think if you consider things like movements like Black Lives Matter and some of the Extinction Rebellion, there's more and more things here that are demonstrating people power, and they're changing the way that the consumer behaves, which business has to react to. And then I think the third thing is, you know, if you'll excuse me a football analogy, your occupational safety and health professional is like your goalkeeper. Your goalkeeper is the first name that any manager writes down on the team sheet. It's the only person you know that's going to play the position. And I think that's where we need to get people thinking about IOSH in business, that fundamentally, when I'm thinking about the sustainability and the future of my organisation, I need somebody from the IOSH profession in there to help me with that direction. And I think those three things combined together will start to eliminate greenwashing. And I think that's the journey that we are on. And I think that's the credibility of the campaign.
That's a great question.
Yeah, it was. Thanks very much from Anthony on that question. Next question, I'll start off with you, Stuart. I know you've just finished talking, but I'll just ask you straight to run into the next one. How do you think you can push businesses away from the standards set of ISOs like 9001, 14001, 45001 to include ISO 26000 for social responsibility?
That's a good question, isn't it? Just had to let me puppy out, so apologies. Gave her a chew to keep her quiet for the whole talk and she ate it too quickly. Challenging. Anyway, that's enough about that. Just buy myself some thinking time. I think that the ISO standards, you know, they exist and organisations operate, to them, and they serve a purpose. But I think this movement goes beyond, you know, a set of standards. When you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, it is a broader blueprint for businesses to collectively work together to solve some of the, you know, biggest challenges that we face, you know, globally. And I think actually rather than, I suppose, trying to direct people away from standards or to say we should include additional standards, I think this is a broader brush really to say actually within the way we think about sustainability, we have to change the narrative to bring people back to the center of the sustainable conversation. And when we're doing that, it gives us the opportunity to bring occupational safety and health into the forefront of that discussion. So I don't think, my opinion, and I wouldn't say this is an IOSH opinion, but my opinion would be, I don't think we would be steering people towards, you know, the ISO standards. I think where we would, you know, be driving people towards is actually, well, if you look at the broad sustainability agenda, here's the key piece that hasn't been focused on enough, and we're bringing that back into the central function of sustainability, and we're coming to that table with, you know, an army of professionals that are have the capabilities to, I suppose, serve the organisation that they work for well, or the organisations if you're a consultant or what have you. So that's probably doesn't quite answer that question, because I don't think I would steer them towards another ISO. I would say actually the campaign's broader than that, and if you look at the material and the information that's available, the purpose of it is to drive that people agenda.
Thank you kindly. Okay, another question for yourself, Louise. What's the difference between social sustainability and corporate social responsibility? And do they work together, or are they the same thing?
I was looking at that question and I thought, I don't know the answer to that. I think they're kind of the same thing, really. I mean, social, it comes, one of the slides that I showed was a development of the people, planet, profit. So it's social sustainability is about how we treat people, it's about our communities and so on, and corporate social responsibility kind of brings all of those pieces together along with the natural. So it's kind of the same language slightly. I mean, somebody else might have another opinion, but I think, and CSR is about the reporting that larger organizations have been doing for some time, whereas social, you know, what we're talking about is social sustainability being a kind of broader discussion topic for all sizes of organization, because I mean, we've had debates. I think somebody put in one of the chat on one of the big webinars that I went on was, does this matter for SMEs? And I work with much smaller organizations, and they can actually have, when you work in a small organization, how people interact with each other, you know, kind of, you can, you know, having people that are working together in harmony, you can have one person that kind of falls out of sync, and that affects a small company in a much larger way. So, you know, I strongly believe this is, you know, should be across the board for everybody. So I guess the answer is, somebody else might be able to help me here, is social sustainability is the kind of piece around people, communities, so on. CSR is about reporting in companies. Somebody help me here.
I think my succinct answer to that is, I think that they have to be comfortable bedfellows. I think the CSR agenda is, is driven on reporting, and actually the social sustainability element should, if we get that right, have a positive impact on the reporting culture. So that they are different, and I think their scope is probably different. But I think the question was kind of, do they, are they cohesive? And I think they should be. Whether they are or not in terms of how that actually deploys, I don't know. But I think that's the best way to look at them.
Thank you. Yeah, very challenging question for anybody to answer when we're quite used to in the last number of years, particularly corporate social responsibility. A lot of businesses and, we're talking about pay gaps and all the rest of it, and all these things intertwine in some way. And this is another element that could be focused on to support it and take the momentum. And I think the question that was raised was by Anthony again, but he also mentioned in his current leadership course that he's in right now, it talks about how the definition of leadership has had to take into account the change in definition and the importance of followership. Leaders answer to followers, so hopefully if we get more buy-in with the general public, it will put pressure on leaders to deliver. And I think it's about collaboration and publicity. And
I really like that, and that's something that I strongly believe in, is that it's moving, and again this is part of the themes for my year, is moving away from command and control to collaboration, to working in harmony and in partnership with everybody. And it's kind of the stuff that I'm doing, which Stan knows about, and Stuart, in council at the moment, is that what we're doing in council is we've got this vast body of elected people, and actually I'm empowering council to prioritise and make decisions about what council thinks is important. And so that has the ability to sort of drive that kind of bottom-up approach as what, but you've got to have strong leadership to put that in place. But then you drive a bottom-up approach, and I always say, we need the side to side and a shimmy in the middle as well. So it's about all levels appreciating the different parts that they play, but it's this kind of the command control and very strong hierarchical structures, I think, are not going to be the way that we see our businesses develop into the future.
Thank you kindly. Now, I think we've got time for just one last point and question. Just obviously it's a brand new initiative. It's a really good campaign, and supporting many of the other campaigns that IOSH has successfully delivered in the last number of years. Quick question from Shirley is, do we have any case studies of organisations that have embraced the Catch the Wave initiative campaign, or are we too early in the process to gauge this?
That's another good question. My understanding, Lou, if I'm wrong, shoot me down very quickly, but my understanding of this is there are some case studies being formulated at the moment. I don't think there are any specific ones that are published under the Catch the Wave banner, but my understanding is that those are being developed and kind of coming to the forefront. I think there's there are organisations that are already I suppose further ahead in the development and deployment of putting people at the heart of their sustainability agenda, and there are lessons to learn through that, but I don't think we've got a giant catalogue of case studies at the moment. And if there's one or two out there and I've misled you, then I'm horribly sorry. But
it's always really difficult.
Correct me.
Yeah, it's always really difficult to get case studies, and I know there's a call out for case studies. If you go to the Human Profit Guide, there is some information there, and I think there are some bits and pieces for Fujitsu and so on the website, but there's kind of a general call out at the moment for case studies, but it's always really hard to get the case studies. I mean, there's probably people on the call like me who I've worked with a variety of different kind of companies, and they definitely have this kind of approach, but we've never turned it into a case study. So it's just about finding those organisations that have a good story to tell.
Yeah, thanks very much for that response. That was really helpful. And Anthony's also put in the chat box there a little link for IOSH.com for resources and research, sustainability and catch the wave. I'm not going to the bit for Jitsu at the end, but it says, like Stuart says, this company was already ahead of the wave. It was a case study to support catch the wave. And that's all the questions for me, so I'll just hand back.
Thank you very much, Sandy. Yeah. Okay, just a short branch update before we sign off for the evening. We're working for our next meeting, AGM, to be face-to-face on the 21st of April. We've been working on the business case. Adrian, you're on the call. Thank you for the swift response from McDermott Park. Anthony, we should hopefully get that submitted tomorrow or early next week, so please look out for it and we'll feed the rest back to the team. Special thanks to Louise and Stuart. You're doing fantastic work. Yeah, it's an absolute honour having you present at our branch, so again, thanks. And I think we'll sign off there, if everybody's okay.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.